There's some major changes coming to the Subject to movement within the real estate community. Here's what you need to know.
Oh, Liz Lawrence.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, we're back at the Lone Lounge with Jennifer McIntyre, our good friend Jennifer McIntyre from Resource Settlement Services. And we wanted to talk to you a little bit today about Subject to, because we've heard some rumblings. There have been some changes to Subject to.
I think a lot of our viewers are always looking for unique ways of getting into deals, and people talk about Subject to, and we tend to, as our podcast is really focused on just like level setting expectations, because I think too often there's this idea of like, I want to own 100 doors and I want to get into a deal with no money, and it's like, yes, there are possibilities. But again, as we've talked numerous times, we want something that's repeatable.
Yeah.
We want something that's systematic, that you can easily just have this kind of happening in the background of your life and growing your financial wealth. But what is the true truth of Subject to?
Yeah. So could you give us like a little background, like what is Subject to, and then what has changed about it?
Yeah, so basically Subject to is when someone is in trouble, usually behind on their mortgage and has issues usually, then a wholesaler investor will come in and get a power, there is a power of attorney for that too, and then they take over making their mortgage payments. But they're deeding the property over as well. So Liz has a property, and there are legitimate reasons in why Subject to has happened. So let's say Liz has a pretty crappy house, and it's not your standard house you're going to go put up on the MLS, and she's way behind, and it's going, she's in trouble, and so somebody can step in and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and make the mortgage payment for you. Usually the intent was then they're going to fix or flip or rehab the house and then quickly sell it, so that there's a very small amount of time. So there's a risk for Liz because she's signing the deed over to me without her mortgage being paid off. And this is clearly told in title. There are multiple documents that they're saying, so that's very risky to deed your property, because if I stop making those payments,
Liz is still on
your
the hook.
credit is
Still
Just tanked. Yeah.
Now, to be fair, most of the time the people who are involved in these situations usually
Already
have pretty
tanked.
bad credit and they don't care.
Yeah.
But it is a risk. So what ended up happening is over time, people started saying, well, I'm going to do a Subject to have a buy and hold. I'm going to make her mortgage and I'm going to rent it out and make it an Airbnb. And so I have her property and I'm making her mortgage for years.
Well, if you look
Yeah.
on Investor Lift,
Yes.
if you go into Investor Lift right now, there's hundreds of Subject to, and you're going to bring X amount of money to closing, and you're just going to make those payments afterwards. And I just, as a lender's perspective, I've always sat there and been like, that looks squirrely.
So that's the first problem. Then the second problem is people started assigning Subject to. So I would get into
So many layers.
So I would now say, hey, Liz, I'll make your mortgage payments and da-da-da-da-da, and you're all excited. And then you not knowing that I'm a wholesaler, go out and find you to say, hey, you want this house? You've got lots of money. Do you want this house? And you make it a bed and breakfast, and whatever you do, you just have to make these mortgage payments. I don't know you very well. I don't know. You might be a great guy and you might pay the mortgage, but you might also have 700 other ones.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much you're making. So in titles, the most claims come from Subject to deals.
Yeah.
So what happened, like at my prior title company, we started only doing Subject tos we knew the person and it was not being assigned. Like if I knew Liz and she was the one that was doing the Subject to, I know her income status. I know that she's an upstanding person. I kind of have but again, she could be going to every title company in town.
Or everyone's financial situation changes.
Yeah.
So then slowly what happened is the major title underwriters. So, I mean, for your viewers, just to understand, even though I'm at title company A or your title company B or C, we all have a national underwriter, just much like your insurance. Like it could be Stewart or Fidelity or any, but there's only so many of those and they all underwrite every title company. So at least 5 of the major underwriters have said no more Subject to, because they're the most litigious. Even if I have all the paperwork in the world and Liz signed a piece of paper saying she knows that she's deeding her property over, that doesn't matter. That when your credit gets ruined, that you go sue the wholesaler, you sue me, you sue everybody. We're going to win, but we got to pay to be in court.
It's pain.
So the major underwriters have stopped. So my advice to any of your viewers, that if they are heavily a Subject to person, they really need to start changing, because I think it's probably going to be completely banned within a year.
Really?
Wow.
I don't even know of a title company in Ohio that still does them. Maybe
Really?
one.
Maybe one.
That's crazy.
Huh.
I mean, I think a lot of our viewers are just looking for that strategy. And yes, at the time of when Subject 2 is being discussed and figured out and all the logistics, like it seemed like a viable option. But I think as we all have been through this industry numerous times over, things change. You got to adapt your model and be able to work with the changes that come along. So be mindful, depending on where you're at, if Subject 2 is still a viable, investment option, or if you're needing to kind of change direction, but don't get yourself in a pickle. It makes me feel a little bit better that there seems to be some protective mechanisms kind of for everybody's sake. But at the same time, big changes happening in the investment space. Be mindful of it.